wonder what game we should play next.
Need for Speed?
Most Wanted?
This isn't Most Wanted.
Of course it is!
This is not Most Wanted. This is Most Wanted.
No, this is Most Wanted.
This is Most Wanted.
No, this is Most Wanted.
No, this is.
This is the better one.
This is.
This is the absolute best.
This one's the
So I was gleaning through my collection and I found some interesting things like these two games called Need for Speed Most Wanted. Now you might think, oh, these are the same game, but it re-released with new box art. No. Now you might think, oh, this game is a sequel to this game. No, these are actually two completely different games. So, two games. The original Most Wanted came out in 2005, with the newer one coming out in 2012. Now, I would start with the first one I played, but I guess I will go in chronological order. It was a year after one of the greatest racing games of all time that introduced the open world concept to Need for Speed, and we were stepping into the new generation of video games with more detailed HD worlds. EA needed a new Need for Speed game for the year, so Black Box went to work on making something that combined great customization from the Underground games with more refined handling and controls, and making a fantastic street racing story and progression system to top it all off. Now let's take a brief look at 2012 and dive deeper into these games. It was a year after a short, sweet comeback for the Need for Speed series with Need for Speed The Run, and Criterion aimed to make an epic sequel to the most popular and most favorited Need for Speed game of all time. Due to time constraints EA was putting on Criterion Games for the next Need for Speed game, Criterion had to rush to make a half-decent game before their deadline, and in the end, they made a racing game with a similar style to Burnout, but with real cars and its own fanbase. Now, time to go through each game thoroughly. The customization in Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 is great, but not without some flaws. You have a bunch of preset body kits for each car, and some individual parts like hoods and wings, but a lot of individual bumpers, lights, side skirts, and mirrors, and all these fine details in customization did not transfer from Underground 2 for some reason. You can apply a nice paint job to your car and rims, decals and vinyls, as well as changing the speedometer, but the paints are very bland in brightness and saturation, which opposes the nicely saturated slightly darker paints in Underground 2, and you also have many decals and vinyls missing from Underground 2. The performance upgrade system changed from Underground 2 to adapt to all the super fast stock sports and supercars that the game has. ECU upgrades are gone, but you have more levels of upgrades for some parts, and fast cars in the game will come pre-installed with higher level parts than stock, with a no option to downgrade, which evens out all the cars when you start upgrading them. The performance system is probably the only thing that has improved from Underground 2, while body customization and visual paints and decals have gotten worse in this game. Now, the handling and controls are a little different than Underground 2, and you have the first HD Need for Speed game. The handling model has been modified from Underground 2 to be more smooth and controllable, but it's not as responsive, and it's not better than Underground 2's handling, it's just different. The handling model is all opinion-based. You might like Underground 2's better, you might like Most Wanted's better. All the buttons are in the right place, and there are many different options for button layouts, and there's a new feature called Speed Brake adding another variable into the mix. Really quickly, Speed Brake basically allows you to slow down time to properly turn through corners if they are too tight and sharp, or you forgot to brake. Now, with this game coming out in 2005 with the Xbox 360 already released, they were able to make this the first Need for Speed game in HD. But that was just one version of the game, out of many, and not many owned a 360 yet since it just released, and if you didn't, you could get it on the PS2, the GameCube, and the original Xbox if you were waiting to make that leap. While this looked good on all consoles, the 360 version looked very clean and detailed with higher resolutions and more detailed textures. However, the performance wasn't any better or worse on the console. The progression system and story in this game are by far its strongest points. The story starts out with you, a mysterious racer rolling into Rockport City, racing these random people through the city and then running into the cops and becoming a target for them. Then you are challenged to race the city's most wanted racers, and the first guy you race rigs it by tampering with your car so you can't even make it to the finish line. He then takes your car, and then the police pull up, and since you're the only one without a car, you get caught. You get bailed out 2 months later by someone you've been becoming friends with, and she helps you in your journey to race and beat all the most wanted racers to get to the person to the top, which is the person that stole your car. The way the progression works is you have to complete a certain number of races and have a high enough bounty to challenge the Blacklist member to a series of races. Every time you beat a Blacklist member, you get a new set of races with a certain number of them you need to have beaten, and you have different milestones you can try and achieve that will increase your bounty so you can challenge the next person on the list. You can do all the races and milestones if you want, and even go back to them later if you haven't completed them or you need to replay some races for more cash. All the milestones have to do with getting in a police pursuit, minus the speed cameras. But anyway, if you use one car long enough in police chases, its heat level goes up and doesn't transfer to other cars, and you can't get rid of it. The races you have to complete can be easy or hard depending on your car's performance or how good the rubber banding or catch-up mode is for the AI cars that allows them to catch back up to you really quickly and easily if they fall too far behind. So that's the gist of Most Wanted 2005. So many good qualities with only one or two major flaws, with everything else being little things. Now, 2012 is considered a very bad Need for Speed game for a lot of reasons, but there is a reason. EA used to have the Need for Speed series on a very strict yearly release basis, and with how much more complex games were getting, making a good game took much longer time, and because of this, a lot of the things Criterion wanted to do with this game got scrapped because they just needed a game to be out. Now, Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012's big thing is the progression system, or lack of. You start the game driving an Aston Martin to go get in your actual first car in the game, which is a Porsche, and then you do one race against the Aston Martin and then you're on your own. Basically how it works is, in order to get new cars you have to find them on the map, which is small with not that many areas to really hide, and when you find one you discover a jack spot, and you can get into the car and drive, and you can use the easy drive menu to jump to cars you've already found, and there are 3 jack spot locations for every car. Now if you want to add upgrades or mods to your car, you have to race in that car, and the races are pretty fun and chaotic. It gets so chaotic that you can go from 6th place to 1st place down to 5th in the span of a few seconds. But it doesn't get overly chaotic to the point where it's really hard to win races. It just makes it more interesting. From winning these races, you also get speed points, which is the sense of progression in this game. Get enough points to challenge the next most wanted racer, win the race, take down the car, and take it for your own. Getting speed points is actually really easy too. You need 1 million to get to the top, and then you can challenge and race all the most wanted drivers. And you can do race after race to stock up on speed points, and you can also get them by getting in pursuits and smashing billboards and gates. Now from the start, you can get pretty fast supercars, but the fastest of the fast are the top most wanted cars, which gives you a pretty good reason to try and obtain them. But it still doesn't change the fact that the progression of this game is not that fun or rewarding. Now on to customization. Oh boy, the only thing you can do to spice up your car is changing the paint by going through a gas station, which also repairs your car and refills your nitrous if you have some equipped. You can't choose the color it picks, and you don't have any special colors. You just have a couple colors for every car, and some cars may not have any cool colors. There are a couple cars that actually have special liveries that you can change on the fly from Easy Drive, but they are DLC cars in the Need for Speed Heroes pack. The only real sense of actual visual customization was locked behind a paywall. Now, performance customization is the only thing we can get a piece of in this game. Like I said, winning races gets you mods for that car, and the mods can give you nitrous, slightly better speed and acceleration, better off-roading, stronger build, or re-inflating tires. Not a whole lot to beef your car up, but it is something, although you can't have every aspect of the car upgraded at once. only a few things. Now, I would talk a lot about 2012's best attribute, the multiplayer, but I never got to experience it and I can't currently play it. Basically, you have these speed lists to complete, and then when you're done, you get more points or whatever to unlock more stuff, and then you go to a meeting spot for the next speed list. And there was even a car only playable in the multiplayer, and it was a Dodge Charger. Really, the next big thing I wanted to talk about is the DLC content. Now, not too long after the game came out, some DLC packs were released, all containing new cars, races, and mods. But you also had some other cool things. With the Need for Speed Heroes pack, you get the only real customizable cars in the game. With Terminal Velocity, you get a whole map expansion with a freaking airport and entirely new race modes that make it even more like Burnout. With Ultimate Speed, you get the absolute fastest cars in the entire game, which is kind of a downside that you have to pay for the best cars. Movie Legends has some of the most iconic cars from movies to give it a more unique car list. Overall, the DLC adds a lot more fun things to do in the game at the cost of extra money. So, after thoroughly going through both, I can say they're both great racing games, but for totally different reasons. I may have given Most Wanted 2012 some harsh treatment in this video, but truth be told, it's a fantastic game that I've had a lot of fun in, even from when I was a child, but it just lacks what it means to be a Need for Speed game, even though it's a great racing game with a lot of similarities to Burnout. Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 is a classic fun Need for Speed game that defined a generation of Need for Speed games, but truthfully lacks some fullness in features that other Need for Speed games of its time had, like Underground 2 and Carbon. So after seeing the good in both these games, you might be wondering which one is better. Well, it's Most Wanted 2005, obviously.
Hey, did you just call the most overrated racing game better than a fun-filled rampage with supercars? No wonder you work for a corrupt company and soap company and live with your parents.
I am a minor.